The fluorescent lights of the Sterling corporate tower hummed their usual midnight song as Bernard Murphy pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway of the executive floor. His hands, calloused from years of manual labor, gripped the handle with the quiet dignity of a man who'd learned that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. At 42, Bernard had cleaned these floors for 7 years, always the night shift, always invisible to the people who walked these halls during daylight hours. But tonight, everything was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Bernard checked his watch, 12:47 a.m. His daughter Emma would be asleep now, safe with Mrs. Chen next door who watched her during his night shifts. Emma was everything to him, had been ever since his wife Sarah passed away from cancer 4 years ago. The medical bills had destroyed their savings, but Bernard never complained. Every floor he mopped, every window he cleaned, he did it thinking of Emma's smile, her dreams of becoming a doctor someday, the college fund he was slowly, painfully rebuilding dollar by dollar. He turned the corner toward the executive conference room when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the empty building. A gasp, followed by a heavy thud. Bernard's protective instincts, honed by single parenthood, kicked in immediately. He abandoned his cart and rushed toward the sound. There, collapsed on the floor outside the corner office, was a woman in an elegant black dress. Even in her compromised state, Bernard recognized her, Victoria Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a woman whose face graced the covers of Forbes and Business Weekly. Her company employed over 15,000 people worldwide. She was untouchable, unreachable, existing in a stratosphere so far above his own that they might as well have lived on different planets. But right now, Victoria Sterling was unconscious, her lips turning blue, her chest barely moving. Bernard's EMT training from his 20s, from before Emma was born when he dreamed of becoming a paramedic, came flooding back. He dropped to his knees beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there but weakening rapidly. Her airway was blocked. He could see the slight distension of her throat, anaphylactic shock, his mind supplied. Severe allergic reaction. His eyes darted around and spotted her purse a few feet away, its contents spilled across the marble. Among the scattered items, he saw it, an EpiPen. He grabbed it, but when he tried to administer it, his hands shaking with adrenaline, he realized the cap was jammed. Precious seconds were ticking away. Victoria's pulse was getting weaker. Then he remembered, mouth to mouth. If he could get air into her lungs, keep oxygen flowing to her brain, maybe buy enough time to get the EpiPen working or call for help. His phone was back with his cart. There was no time. Bernard tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and pressed his lips to hers, breathing life into her lungs. Once. Twice. 3 times. He pumped her chest, counting compressions the way he'd been taught all those years ago. Then back to rescue breaths. Her lips were cold against his, and he felt the weight of a human life literally in his hands. Come on, he whispered desperately. Come on, you've got people who need you. Fight. On the 5th rescue breath, Victoria's body jerked. She gasped, her eyes flying open in panic and confusion. Bernard quickly rolled her to her side as she coughed and sputtered, air flooding back into her lungs. Her hand flew to her throat, her eyes wild with the terror of someone who'd just touched death's door. You're okay, Bernard said softly, his hand steady on her shoulder. You're okay now. You had an allergic reaction. Just breathe slowly. I'm going to call 911. He ran to his cart, grabbed his phone, and made the call. By the time he returned, Victoria had managed to sit up, leaning against the wall, her breathing still labored but stabilizing. She stared at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, shock, gratitude, and something else he couldn't name. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes. Bernard explained what had happened, showed them the EpiPen, described her symptoms. They stabilized Victoria and prepared to transport her to the hospital. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, her hand shot out and grabbed Bernard's wrist with surprising strength. Wait, she gasped. Your name. What's your name? Bernard Murphy, ma'am. I'm just the night janitor. You don't need to. Bernard Murphy, she repeated, as if committing it to memory. Thank you. You saved my life. Anyone would have done the same, he said, uncomfortable with the intensity of her gaze. No, she said firmly. They wouldn't have. Then the paramedics whisked her away, and Bernard was alone in the hallway again, his heart still pounding, wondering if he'd just imagined the whole thing. He finished his shift in a daze, went home, relieved Mrs. Chen, and crawled into bed just as dawn was breaking. When Emma bounced into his room 3 hours later, full of 8-year-old energy and excitement about a school project, Bernard pushed himself up with a smile and made her breakfast, never mentioning that he'd held a billionaire's life in his hands just hours before. 3 days passed. Bernard returned to his routine, dropping Emma at school, sleeping, picking her up, helping with homework, making dinner, then heading to work. He'd almost convinced himself that the incident with Victoria Sterling was just another odd moment in the life of a night janitor, something to file away and forget. Then he arrived at work on Thursday night to find his supervisor, Mr. Kowalski, waiting for him with an expression Bernard couldn't read. "Murphy, leave the cart. You need to go up to the executive floor. Miss Sterling wants to see you." Bernard's stomach dropped. Did I do something wrong? I followed all the protocols that night. I called 911 immediately after. "You're not in trouble," Kowalski said, and was that a hint of a smile? "Just go. Office 4200. And Murphy, maybe run a comb through your hair first." Bernard's hands were shaking as he rode the elevator up to the executive floor, this time as a visitor rather than a cleaner. The doors opened onto a world of glass walls, modern art, and intimidating silence. A receptionist who probably earned more in a month than Bernard did in 6 guided him to Victoria Sterling's office. The space was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Victoria stood by those windows, looking out at her kingdom, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Bernard's monthly rent. When she turned to face him, he was struck by how different she looked, alive, vibrant, healthy. The deathly pallor from 3 nights ago was gone. "Mr. Murphy," she said, and her voice was warm in a way that surprised him. "Please, sit down." "I'm fine standing, ma'am. I don't want to take up too much of your time." She smiled at that. "Bernard, may I call you Bernard? You saved my life. I think that earns you the right to sit in my office." When he still hesitated, she added gently, "Please. I insist." He sat, perched on the edge of an expensive leather chair, acutely aware of his janitor's uniform in this space designed for suits and power. "I've spent the last 3 days trying to figure out how to thank you," Victoria began, sitting across from him. "The doctors told me that without your quick action, I would have died. Brain damage would have set in within minutes. You didn't just save my life, Bernard. You saved who I am. I just did what anyone would." "Stop," she said, but not unkindly. "I've had 3 days of people telling me how lucky I was, how fortunate that someone was there. But it wasn't luck, Bernard. It was you. Your training, your courage, your compassion. I looked into your background. You were an EMT trainee 20 years ago." Bernard shifted uncomfortably. "For a year, yeah. Then life happened.